Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Snetterton for your next dose of Ginetta racing action. It's the first race this weekend of the Ginetta GT Academy, a championship that sees some of the least experienced drivers on the Ginetta racing ladder do battle. On this occasion, over 20 minutes around the Snetterton 300 circuit under overcast skies. Really strange day weather-wise today at Snetterton. It's the first time we haven't had blue sky in what seems like weeks. The temperature, though, still high. That track temperature still in the low 30s, ambient temperature in the low 20s. It's perfectly comfortable, but it's that breeze that's blowing through. It's bringing with it a weather system that we expect to arrive potentially overnight, but that wind picking up, I think, is bringing it here a little bit more rapidly than maybe we expected. At least the GT Academy drivers don't need to worry about tyre choice should the rain arrive. These cars all running on Michelin road tyres. These V6 engined 270 brake horsepower machines have always produced lots of excitement come rain or shine, and I'm sure here at Snetterton today it will be no different. The pole position for this grid held by the championship leader, Ravi Ramyeed. He arrives here with only a 10-point cushion over Nick White, who lines up alongside him. So the second half of the season now beginning, so dropped scores beginning to come into play. On outright points, he's actually 16 points clear, but Ravi Ramyeed dropping a few more points than Nick White is, and so that means that it is a 10-point cushion for Ravi, who is already 9 times a race winner this year, looking to try and make that win number 10 today and be the first driver to get into double figures. Nick White lining up alongside him knows, though, that he can still take this championship from him. Nick won the very first race of the season back at Alton Park, got another win at Silverstone, another win at Donington Park, but so far hasn't really been able to win with the sort of regularity that he needs to, although that did start to change a bit at Silverstone last time out at the Ginetta Festival, where he won the last 2 races of the weekend on the Silverstone National Circuit. So Nick White has a few race victories as he arrives here at Snetterton, and is looking to ride that wave of confidence in order to try and take this championship lead away from Ramyeed. Ramyeed in qualifying, though, was half a second quicker than Nick White, so the qualifying times suggest that Ravi should have the pace to pull clear at the front, but we've seen in the past Ravi pull clear at the front, and then all of a sudden the race becomes a lot more exciting, either due to a safety car or a mistake or a charge from Nick White, and so hopefully we'll see another close battle between the two of them. Here is the grid then for this first of 3 20-minute races this weekend. Ramyeed and White, as I documented, on the front row together, the top 2 in the overall championship. Then is your runaway rookie class leader, Matt Shaw. Matt Shaw is on dropped points even, over 100 points clear of the opposition, and he starts 3rd overall alongside John Kearney. And then row number 3 for Thomas Shelley and Mark Elman, another couple of the GTA class drivers. The cars all the same, but the drivers split based on experience. So 2 rookies come up next, and in fact 7th on the grid for a brand new driver to the grid, Michael Orant in the number 55 car with Emma Tomlinson alongside. Emma 5th in the AM points, but very close indeed for 2nd on back, which I'll get to in a moment. Then is Amy Tomlinson, who is currently 2nd in that class. Paul Livesey lining up 10th on the grid overall, and then getting towards the tail end of the field now. Penultimate row sees Lucy Tomlinson and Phil McGarty lining up together, and then right at the back we have got Charlotte Lowe, so 13 of them lining up on the grid. And as I've said, we've got this close battle for the overall championship. Within the rookies, Matt Shaw dominant, but 2nd place is very close because we've got 4 drivers within the rookie class covered by just 13 points. Amy Tomlinson on 296 points, which is exactly the same number as Lucy Tomlinson on 296, then 284 for Charlotte Lowe and 283 for Emma Tomlinson. So 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th in the rookie championship covered by not very much at all. And when you consider that there are 35 points available for winning a race, plus a bonus point for the fastest lap, and then also a bonus point for claiming pole position from qualifying, that means that there are plenty of points on offer and plenty of scope for those positions to change as the weekend goes on. This the 5th event of the season. They've got 4 more to do, including this one. From here we head to another Ginetta Festival at Cadwell Park up in Lincolnshire. First time in a long time the Ginettas have had cars racing in the Lincolnshire Wolds. Then Brands Hatch, the Grand Prix circuit alongside British GT, and likewise the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit will play host to the decider for all of our Ginetta championships, who we've welcomed along in full force to the British GT package this year, although GT Academy has run with British GT since its inception a couple of seasons ago. And has always thrilled the British GT fans who have poured into Snetterton today in their numbers. Actually, it may only be qualifying day, but a lot of people here today to enjoy the on-track action. And I'm sure they're looking forward as much as we are to the Ginetta GT Academy race, which, well, it's going to be a significant one in the championship. That run into the first corner, very important here. If Nick White is to have a realistic shot at beating Ravi Ramyud, you do feel that he has to try and get that trap position advantage in the early stages, try and beat the pole sitter into turn one. It's a reasonably long run into turn one. It's also an uphill run into Riches, which means that if you do get a good start, that momentum can carry you past somebody into that first corner. Of course, Ramyud will have the preferred inside line. Nick White will have to come from the outside, but we've seen it done before, and that is exactly what Nick White is going to be trying to do. It is a side-by-side staggered grid, so not the 2x2 grid that we saw from the GT Championship earlier on. That means immediately there is a bit more of an advantage for Ramyud, who starts his green, white and blue car from pole position number 17. Keep an eye to Matt Shaw as well, starting third on the grid, looking for his first overall race victory, although he's already 11 times a winner within the rookie class, as the green flag is waved at the back of the grid. 20 minutes of Ginetta GT Academy action then about to burst into life here at Snetterton. As soon as those red lights go out, which happens now, away they go. It is a good start made by both front row starters. Terrible start made by Matt Shaw, so through into third. Immediately comes John Kearney in the yellow car. Banging door handles already, though, between the top two. And on the inside, Ramyud, I think, will hang on. Wing mirror folded in on Nick White's car as a result of that little tap. And I reckon, well, in fact, he's back on the inside. Brilliant switchback move there from White. He's got the inside line into the Wilson hairpin. Oh, Ramyud tries to close the door, can't do it. White goes through. Kearney on the inside of both of them, maybe, for the race lead. Out of Wilson, down towards Palmer's. He's on the outside line, and Ramyud's trying to buy back into this as well. Nick White, the leader. Ramyud up the inside of Kearney, goes back into second. And John Kearney down to third. Shaw is there in fourth. Then it's Thomas Shelley in fifth. Mark Elman sixth. What a brilliant start that was. But Nick White knew the importance of getting ahead of Ramyud in the early stages, and that is what he's been able to do. So brilliant stuff there from Nick White. Under pressure, was able to perform and got that move made through the first couple of corners. Now, just the small matter of keeping Ramyud behind him for another 19 minutes. That isn't going to be easy to do, and Nick perhaps already feeling the pressure there. Understeered wide of the apex at Hamilton. Just compromises his line slightly into Oggies. Doesn't look like he's got those front tyres up to temperature just yet for Nick White. The front of the car not really gripping up in the way that he would like. Whereas Ramyud is right on his tail, heading out onto the back straight. Now things just starting to come to White, perhaps, as he leads them down towards the bridge at the end of that straight. Look at Matt Shaw on the tail of John Kearney for third. In fact, look at Ramyud peeking to the inside of White for the lead. He's too far back, but Shaw might have a go here for third. He's not quite late enough on the brakes, and so John Kearney keeps him behind, but Shaw still leading that rookie class, which is really his priority. And we'll wait and see what the order is behind him as far as that fight for second place in the rookie championship is concerned. It's over the curb, coming out of the bomb hole through corner, and well, Ravi Ramyud best pleased at losing that race lead, but he knows that all is not done just yet. He has got the pace here this weekend. It's just now a matter of finding a way past Nick White. But Nick's going to put up a very, very stern defence, that's for sure. Again, knows how important it is to try and outscore Ravi on as many occasions as he can. Across the line they go, just the 4/10 in it between the top two, then a further second back to Kearney third, Shaw fourth, Shelley fifth, Elman sixth, Emma Tomlin's up to sixth now, ahead of Paul Livesey, so newbie Michael Orange dropping a few positions. Ninth overall now, third within the class, as to the Wilson hairpin they go again. With Nick White still having to run a defensive line there, so not comfortable yet in the fact that Ramyud's far enough back. To try and build that margin as much as he can, but again he's way late of the apex there into Palmer, so I don't know whether this is just a handling imbalance or whether Nick White is feeling the pressure, but he's just not quite firing on all cylinders right now, is he, the race leader? He's got the lead, but cannot escape, and there's a couple of little mistakes still creeping in. Again, he's noticeably wider of the apex there than Ramyud, so Ramyud, just his minimum corner speed is that little bit higher as a result, comes off the turn better too. Can't really do a lot of passing through here. Maybe if you're really feeling brave, you could launch one up the inside into Oggies, but this early in the race, not really worth taking that risk, so he will likely wait until the back straight to make his move. Kearney and Shaw, who are now joined by Thomas Shelley there, the green car, which has got, you'll notice, different colours on the front of it. The bonnet and front bodywork doesn't match the rest of the car, which rather suggests that he's had a moment earlier on in the weekend. In the slipstream of the two cars ahead, he will try and join in that podium fight. Both Kearney and Shaw, by the way, quicker than the leaders in Sector 1. Although now in Sector 2, Nick White starting to stretch his legs, pulls a couple of tenths on Ramey, maybe now just starting to calm down, settle into the rhythm. What he really wants is John Kearney to get onto the tail of Ramey and start challenging for second, because that could take more points away from Ramey, and if nothing else, it could distract Ramey enough that Nick White can make his escape. You score points within your individual class though, so if Matt Shaw, for example, was to start overtaking Ramey or Nick White, or John Kearney for that matter, wouldn't affect their championship points because he's running in a different class. Likewise, Shaw has no more points to be gained in this race really. He's already leading his class, but he'd love to get onto the overall podium if he can. Across the line they go then, down to Rich's corner again. Close they get to the edge of the road there into that first turn. So easy to dip a wheel onto the grass, turning in and lose control. Perfect for our leading four. Replay here of, oh, that's Thomas Shelley going off. So yes, I had noticed Thomas Shelley was not in that picture, and he's not actually come through yet at the end of that second lap of the race. So Thomas Shelley from 5th place going off. That promotes Mark Elman into the top 5 now. Emma Tomlinson 6th, and in fact Shelley is in the pit lane. After that grassy moment, it looked like coming out of Nelson. Right, lead gap coming down in the first sector, no doubt about it. It was 7 tenths at the start of the lap. Well, 3 tenths quicker in Sector 1 alone there was Ravi Ramid, as John Kearney is actually now busy defending from Matt Shaw rather than going after the leaders. So pairing off now, 2 for the lead, 2 for third. There is Thomas Shelley, who should be in that picture, but he's actually down in the pit lane and is out of the race. So didn't see anything from that super slow-mo that would suggest the car had damage, unless the damage was, well, damage could have been the cause of him going off the road, or the problem of some sort could have been the cause of him going off the road, or maybe after he cut from that shot, he bounced across the grass and did some splitter damage. Couldn't tell from that angle, really. It's in front of the car to know a little bit more, perhaps, about what has ended his race specifically. Race leaders, though, head down towards the end of the Bentley Straight for the 3rd time. And Nick White, well, not comfortably ahead, but he has that track position advantage, and although there are several places here at Snetterton actually where you can launch an attack, it's not the easiest of places to pass. You can defend quite readily into most of those big braking points. Because there's a lot of left-right on that infield section, even if you defend into a corner and run wide on the exit, you've still got the inside for the next corner then, so it's a case of outfoxing your opponent sometimes if you're trying to make a move stick. That's a problem facing both Ravi Ramid and Matt Shaw right now. Down to the end of another lap they come. Matt Shaw closer to John Kearney than Ramid is to White for the time being. The lead gap actually goes out in the end to 8.5 tenths. This gap is just under half a second though. So Kearney into Rich's. And there was a lock-up there now. Was that White or was that Ramid locking up into the Wilson Hairpin? You heard the snatching of brakes. It must have been Nick White. Nick White a little bit scrappy off the second corner. So again, he's pushing hard to try and keep Ramid at bay. You heard the screech of tyres. You saw the whiff of tyre smoke there being kicked up by the race leader as they went into that right-hand hairpin. That will just give an extra bit of incentive, an extra little bit of confidence to Ramid that White is not happy with how his car's handling. It does look like he's got just something with the front end of that number 57 car that he's not super happy with. Matt Shaw explores the track limits. Now Matt's already being warned about exceeding track limits. That was being warned almost exactly at the time that he went wide then. So Matt Shaw is playing a dangerous game. Exceed them too often, and you will have 5 seconds added to your race time. There is the confirmation, car number 33, black and white warning flag for exceeding track limits. That's not a penalty yet, but if he does it again, our understanding is that he will then start to have time added onto his race, which probably won't affect his rookie class standings because he's well more than 5 seconds clear of Emma Tomlinson, second in the class, but would certainly drop him out of overall podium contention. Ravi Ramid comes through, sporting the scars from that lap 1 altercation with Nick White. The bit of rubber on the left front corner of Ramid's car is not from his tyres, that's from Nick White's Michelin. Door to door through those first few corners. Shaw now hooking that tight line through corner and then turns into Murray's. scrabbling for grip. Got to manage those tyres. This is quite a punishing track on tyres, especially when these cars, with all of their power, are having to negotiate it on semi-slick tyres, track day tyres basically, that are fully road legal. It just means that overheating those tyres is relatively easy to do. White, despite a couple of little mistakes, and despite this first part of the lap clearly not favouring him, is always able seemingly to get the gap back out to 6 or 7 tenths at least by the end of the lap. So we come back to some of the battling going on further back. That is number 55, and that is Michael Orant, who's dropped another place now. He's down to 9th overall, and that means number 47, Lucy Tomlinson's found a way through. Now, Lucy is joint second in the rookie championship with Amy Tomlinson. Is ahead of Amy on track right now, so Lucy would move into sole ownership now, that second place. Number 36, Emma Tomlinson, 5th in points within the rookies, but none of them able to keep up with Matt Shaw, who has been in a class of his own, really, in that rookie class this year.
Okay, so the,
turning his way through.
As for the lead, you know, I think that
The rookie class drivers run by one to race, so I say morning there's a lot of cooperation there as well, working together with each other to try and make all of the drivers in that class perform a bit better. It's always fascinating to see them getting quicker and quicker as the season goes on. Leaders then down the Bentley straight. Matt Shaw, by the way, has just done a purple first sector. I mean, he was 4 tenths quicker, 4.5 tenths quicker than the race leader in sector 1 alone. And race leader Nick White did a personal best in the first sector, so he wasn't going slowly. That's an astonishingly good first part of the lap there for Matt Shaw, who he would argue would probably go quicker if he wasn't stuck behind John Kearney. But Matt just cannot quite find a way through, can he? For the ex-footballer, who's now turned his attention to proper sport in motor racing, and he dives on the inside, and that was a proper elbows out move, and unfortunately it has ended rather predictably in contact, and he and John Kearney, well, perhaps for the best that we couldn't see John's reaction because of that cloud of dust, but I don't think it would have been all that friendly. Matt Shaw and John Kearney coming to blows at the final turn, and that will likely put them both out of the race. I think there's definitely some suspension damage to Shaw's car, and I actually think Kearney is sort of stuck to his car at the moment. So that puts the battle for third to a rather abrupt end, and is going to surely now require a safety car, because they're both stranded on the edge of the road. Neither of them yet getting out of the cars, partly because I don't think Matt Shaw can get out of his car because he's wedged up against the 25 machine. Now, if we do get a safety car, it won't make a huge amount of difference to these two, because they're pretty much nose to tail to start with, 8 tenths the margin between them. Yellow flags out. Was that a safety car board? Yes, it was. A safety car scrambled then, predictably, here at Snetterton. Will bring Mark Elman onto their case. And of course, with Matt Shaw out of the race now, it means Emma Tomlinson takes over the lead of the class. Lucy Tomlinson second, and Michael Orant in third. Those three will now close right up. Now, there is Matt Shaw out of the car. This could be interesting. The marshal doing his best to keep Matt away from John Kearney, who's also doing his best to avoid eye contact with Matt. They stalk away, and that's actually quite nice to see. They both, I think, were realising that was just a bit of a racing incident. Matt perhaps claiming responsibility, dived up the inside from a long way back. It's a tempting move to make, and indeed when they reprofiled that part of the circuit back in 2010, it was specifically designed to create more overtaking, but it's not really worked out that way. It's not a long enough approach into that corner. You come off Coram, and then you're pretty much immediately on the brakes and into the left-hander at Murray's. If they'd have extended that stretch a bit more and put Murray's corner a bit more into the infield, if that makes sense, it probably would have generated more overtaking. But that's the reason why it doesn't really work. You've got to come from often a long way back, because you can't really go side-by-side in these cars through Coram. And makes it a relatively low percentage move, but Matt Shaw extending his hand in apology to John Kearney, and John seemingly accepting it, so that's good to see, and they will make the relatively short wander back to the paddock together, leaving their cars in the capable hands of the marshals. But this is going to take a little while, because I think those cars, we haven't really got an angle that shows it properly, but I do think those two cars are properly wedged together. I think the suspension or steering has broken on Matt Shaw's car, and possibly on Kearney's too, and they've, I think, sort of interlocked, which means with only 6 3/4 minutes to go, we might not get a huge amount of racing in now by the time they get those cars cleared. Once they get them unhooked, it's only a matter of dragging them into the pit lane, which isn't far away. But that first bit of the process is going to take a little while, I think. Whilst behind the safety car, let's take another look, shall we, at that. Here's the end of the move. And there you can see, I think just there, the cars get hooked together as Kearney sort of spins across the front of Shaw's car, and that's what's going to create a bit of a headache for the marshals to get the cars moved. From that point, it looks like the move was on, and they were just side by side into the braking zone, but as we know, that wasn't really the full story. So, bit of a foul there from Matt Shaw, but he will bounce back, I'm sure, as will John Kearney in the next race, and try to get back to winning ways within the rookie class. Shaw has won 11 races in that class. He's not been the only winner, though, because he has had some races where things haven't gone to plan. Had a non-finish at Donington Park in the middle race. That was a race that was then won by Emma Tomlinson. We've also had 2 class wins now, I believe, for Richard Just. One came in the 3rd race at Alton Park, and the other, our most recent race, actually, at Silverstone, where Matt Shaw did find himself in the wars a few times. And allowed Richard to sneak through and claim his 2nd victory of the season. Richard Just, though, not racing with us here at Snetterton. As the recovery process begins, 5 minutes left, and such is the length of a lap here. It's 2 and a bit minutes under green flag behind the safety car. We're going to be doubling that, more or less. So I think we'll probably end up starting what will essentially be the last lap at the end of this one. That means our chances of seeing another racing lap in the green flag racing lap in this one relatively low, which is a shame because it was a fascinating battle between Nick White and Ravi Ramid at the front of the field. White elbowing his way through at the start of the race, but Ramid sticking with him as the race wore on. Never more than about 6 or 7 tenths between the two of them. But White, if he can claim the win, he's also got the fastest lap, so that's 36 points. Ramid will claim 30 for 2nd, plus a bonus point for the pole, so 31. Means that it will be a 5-point gain for Nick White. That means the gap will come down to 5 points at the head of this GT Academy Championship. Means that the rest of this weekend is going to be more fascinating. 3 events to go after this one. 9 more races once we leave Snetterton. Championship that could be very, very finely poised. So, lights still on the Ginetta G56 safety car, as we expected, and as you can see on the top left-hand side of your screen, we are going to be crossing the line with under 3.5 minutes to go. This safety car lap has already taken about 3 and a bit minutes, so we'll get the official lap time from the safety car in a moment or two, but I don't think we're going to get back round again before the time ticks to 0, and even if we do, I'm not convinced that recovery is going to be completed. They might have unhooked the cars. I'm not actually sure they have. I think the cars are still stuck together. Just one of those really bizarre incidents where the cars have landed awkwardly, and it means the marshals aren't able to remove the cars as efficiently as we're used to seeing them. So through we go, with 2 minutes 55 to go, and that lap was 3 minutes 40. So you do the maths. I think we're on to our final lap of the race now. Nick White won't want to win this way necessarily, but a win is a win, and it does mean that it meant a few less laps of defending for the race leader. As now the red flag is thrown, so the red flag sensibly comes out then to save us all the bother of watching them tour around behind the safety car this time and then have to do a very slow in lap as well. Got to think there are still other races, other sessions to be held today, so it makes sense to try and keep things moving on as swiftly as we can. So this will end the race a little prematurely. We've gone well beyond the distance required to score maximum points though, so it is a full points race, and it will be a 5-point lead now by my reckoning in the championship for Ravi Ramid. In the rookies then, let's do something very dangerous live on air and attempt to do some maths and work out what this all means, because Shaw will lose points, of course. He had, how many non-finishes have Matt had so far? He'd only had 1 non-finish, so this will count as another one of his drops. But for 2nd place is where I'm really more interested. Amy Tomlinson, 2nd in the championship, will finish only 4th, so she will claim 22 points. whereas Emma and Lucy Tomlinson are both going to outscore her. So Lucy in particular will move into second place in the championship. Emma, I think, will move ahead of Charlotte Lowe now into fourth, but they're all going to tighten up ever further now. It was 13 points second back to fifth in the rookies, and I think that's going to come down possibly into single figures now. We'll let the timekeepers do the complicated sums, because drop scores may well be affected in that class as well, not just for Matt Shaw, the points leader, who notched up his second non-finish of the season. So there is Emma, fourth place overall as well for Emma Tomlinson, so a really, really good outright finishing position, helped of course by Shaw and Kearney retiring, and we had Thomas Shelley retiring to the pits, didn't we, as well at the end of lap 1. So that took a few of the quicker drivers out, but good to see Emma and Lucy, in fact, both getting into the top 5 overall. There, Nick White, with no obvious damage on that side of the car. I would be interested actually to see the driver's side, to see whether he did have any real bodywork damage after that couple of bits of side-to-side contact he had with Rami. He had a knock on either side, I think, but it was the right-hand side of the car where the wing mirror was folded in. Now, that being the driver's side, I think he's been able at some point to reach out and unfold the wing mirror. So, yeah, they're both sort of sticking out where they should do now. The car looks pretty good to me. And, well, he may report to the team after that it did something to the handling of the car, because he really was struggling to get the car turned in. Now, that's an interesting shot of the recovery process. You can see that broken left rear suspension on Kearney's car. I think that hooked onto the broken right front suspension of Matt Shaw's machine. That's what's really delayed the marshals getting them onto flatbed truck. Matt Shaw's car now being hoisted, and Kearney's car will follow shortly. But I do think that's why we had a little bit longer of a delay than we were hoping for. Nick White doesn't mind though, he collects another race victory. It is his 6th of the season now, 3 fewer than Ravi Rami, but he's only 5 points adrift by my maths in what is becoming an ever increasingly close championship battle. Rami in second, Mark Ellman gets on the podium in 3rd place. That's only his 2nd podium finish of the season, whilst Emma Tomlinson will claim the victory in the rookie category, her 2nd of the season within that class. Lucy Tomlinson 2nd, then newbie Michael Orant was 3rd in that class, 6th overall ahead of Paul Livesey and Phil McGarty. Amy Tomlinson was next, and then it was Charlotte Lowe, and then of course the 3 non-finishers, John Kearney and Matt Shaw tangling at the final corner, and Thomas Shelley, after a grassy moment on lap 1, retiring to the pit lane. So cars make their way into Parc Fermé then. Slightly underwhelming way to end the race. Would have been fascinating to see whether or not Nick White could have held on there from Ravi Rammeed in the closing stages, but in the end, a win is a win. Points go to Nick White, and he's very happy with that. Taps the roof of the car in celebration as he gets out to be greeted by the teams. And we'll head over now to have a chat with Ravi, with whom he did trade a little bit of paint on that opening lap, but I don't think it was anything really untoward. I don't think Ravi's going to be too disappointed with that. Disappointed to lose the win, though, but I did think that first couple of corners was going to be particularly important in that one. Overtaking, as we saw, was not easy, and gaining that track position advantage from the get-go was the pivotal thing for Nick White, who claims another win in the Ginetta GT Academy Championship. Well, it was a dramatic race at the beginning, that's for sure. Poor start for Matt Shaw put him behind John Kearney, whilst the top 2 on the grid, top 2 in the championship, had traded paint before they even reached turn 1. John Kearney on the Ravi Rammeed on the inside, fended off Nick White initially into Riches, but then a great switch back from Nick on the exit put him on the inside line into the Wilson head, and they both outbrake themselves slightly. John Kearney nearly nipped through into the race lead. He did briefly get into 2nd and then pulled alongside Nick White, but that left the door open for Rammeed, and we had several positional changes within the first few corners. There things started to settle down, although not for Thomas Shelley, who suffered broken steering on the left front corner of his car after going off down at Brundle and Nelson. Matt Shaw was stuck behind John Kearney for a while, made a late dive up the inside at Murray's, tangled with the 25 car. They were both out, and that put them stuck on the edge of the road. Safety car necessitated, and sadly, we ran out of time. Thankfully, those two, though, were still on speaking terms after the clash. The red flag, though, flew, and it meant that Nick White claimed another race victory then, his latest victory moving him now to within 5 points of the championship lead.